Then it's my pleasure to present our next speaker of this session, Pat Grady. Pat works at the Cleveland Clinic, and ever since I've been in perfusion, and it's a long time, was in perfusion, I've heard about your name and finally meet you now. So Pat's going to talk to us about the Medtronic Autolog IQ. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for the opportunity to speak here. Thanks for Medtronic for supporting this talk as well. So here's a picture of the Cleveland Clinic. So in the foreground, you see the main campus of the Cleveland Clinic, and then the background, you can kind of see downtown Cleveland, our 3 or 4 big buildings. This is the Heart and Vascular Institute at the Cleveland Clinic, which houses our heart surgery. So Cleveland Clinic main campus is a 173-acre campus composed of 60 buildings, 1,400 beds. There's 15 or 16 cardiac ORs daily. We average about 22 cases a day. There's 17 cardiac surgeons and then 37 perfusionists. We do a lot of cases, so you can see the kind of breakdown of cardiac, thoracic, and pediatric cases. The adult surgery at the Cleveland Clinic, we just did over 5,000 last year. We do just about every type of case. So it's kind of a breakdown of the types of cases, and other comprises everything else that we do. And we do it pretty well. So we have lower mortality than expected. So the goals of perioperative autotransfusion is to return the red blood cells to the patient, the highest quantity, the highest quality, with the lowest waste, and as fast as possible. Some of the benefits, financial benefits, so you can reduce the cost of blood products. And again, there's some data out there, anywhere from $550 to $1,183 is the cost of a unit of blood. It's kind of hard target to reach. You can reduce the cost of transfusion-related reactions, also with clerical errors when you're doing type and cross matching. There's also clinical benefits, so it reduces the transmission of bloodborne diseases, lowers the risks of transfusion reactions, helps address the blood shortages that we're going through. It's immediately available, and you can also respect the wishes of patients who want to avoid receiving blood transfusion. So the original Autolog was adopted at the Cleveland Clinic in 2007. We had a trial with all the cell savers manufacturers at the time. It was easy to set up and operate, had a small footprint in the OR, and with storing of disposables, produced a consistent product. It was easy to clean, there was minimal waste, and it was relatively inexpensive. The Autolog was at the Cleveland Clinic, the initial one from 2007 to 2018. It was our standard for cell salvage at the time. Some key features of the device: it has a simple logic structure, very automatic operation, so the perfusionists could concentrate on running the heart-lung machine and not the cell saver. It had one bowl size, 135 mLs, one-piece disposable kit. It was easy to learn, set up, operate, and troubleshoot, and it was pretty simple. It had a 34-page manual. In 2017, we were getting to the point where we needed to replace these devices. So we looked at the Cleveland Clinic. We have a general OR cell-saving team, and they had 6 brats, 8 of the elites, and then 4 of the Autologs. Our pediatric cardiac OR, the perfusionists used Fresenius cats, and then in the adult cardiac ORs, we had 17 of the Autologs. So at the Cleveland Clinic, we keep a 10-year life cycle for all of our devices. So we replace the devices before we start having issues with them, kind of like a car with 200,000 miles on it. We use them a lot. So we like to replace them before we have any major mechanical issues. So in 2018, we had our cell saver trials. So we looked at 3 of the new cell saver models that were available. So we looked at 2 with a Latham bowl, so the Sorin Extra and the Humanetics Elite, and 1 with the IntelliPath bowl, which was the Medtronic Autolog IQ. So the IntelliPath bowl allowed for use on several different sizes of patients. It has an adaptive 2-stage filling process. So it would fill, it actually pauses for a second, and then resumes the fill. So if you have a low hematocrit, it fills quickly. If you have a high hematocrit, it fills slowly. So kind of like you're pouring a can of pop or soda, since we're in the South. Pouring a can of soda in a cup, you kind of stop, let the bubbles rise, and then you continue to pour. Same thing with the cell saver, so it does it automatically. And then it has a pulse wash, which is very unique. So it only uses 250 mLs of saline. And the pulse actually spins and slows and allows for greater saline penetration. So this is a picture of the 3 devices we trialed in 2018. So the Autolog IQ was our device to beat. So there would be seamless integration. There would be really no changes with the existing supply chain. The disposal were unchanged from the previous generation. It had an 11-year track record by the first device at the Cleveland Clinic. So some of the considerations that we looked at throughout this trial was cost, the size, speed, the quality of product, ease of use, and then if there was any other novel features with new devices. So our blood bank developed a rigorous qualification process. So the companies came in and assembled them. We had our clinical engineering folks check them out. And then we did simulations with human blood. So we used expired red blood cells with heparin and saline to kind of replicate OR conditions. We diluted hematocrit to around 15%. Then we measured the pre and post heparin in the hematocrit, and then each device was tested 3 times. So we tested the first and third bowl that were processed, and we were looking for results with a hematocrit greater than 45, a potassium less than 2, and a heparin level less than 0.5. We looked at 3 tests per the devices. So this is kind of a sample of what we looked at with one of the Autologs. So we looked at that first and third unit. You can see the heparin value was much less than the 0.5. It was 0.08. Hematocrit values were high 60s, and then the potassium levels were below the acceptable 2 at around 1. So once they passed this qualification, we sent them into the OR. We did 20 cases per device. We had input from 30 perfusionists through a standardized survey. And then we looked at the QC results from the second bowl process. We looked for the same things: hematocrit greater than 45, the potassium less than 2, and the heparin less than 0.5. So the Sorin Extra came in multiple bowl sizes. So we trialed the 125 ml and the 175 ml bowl. There was custom wash cycles available. We set it to the default, which was recommended by the company. It did have a hematocrit sensor pre and post. It had an exposed storage shelf on the bottom, a data printout, a difficult latch to close the mechanism for the reservoir, and it had a large user manual. The Hemanetics Elite had multiple bowl sizes. We trialed the 225 ml bowl. Again, it had custom wash profiles, it had data management kind of built in, maintenance self-check on startup. It had exposed storage on the bottom, and then it had the capability to send data through a Bluetooth for potential inventory management, but we didn't utilize that during the trial. And then the Autolog IQ, it retained the desirable qualities of the original, only uses that 250 ml wash. The IntelliPath bowl design increases the red blood cell pack. It went through that pulsatile wash, so it increased the saline penetration and allowed for a higher hematocrit. It had an auto start function, and if you didn't ever touch it, it would just return the blood from the bowl to the reservoir if you didn't have enough. And then it was fast. It produced 1.5 bowls in the amount of time it took the others to do 1 bowl. So some of the improvements that were made from the previous generation, the Autolog IQ, had an easier setup. So it had a horizontal manifold instead of the old vertical style. It had a storage drawer that was built in. The vacuum was now a whisper quiet and a vapor trap on the back. It supports 2 reservoirs, and we'll show a picture of what we use that for. It had a handle, so for easier maneuverability kind of down the hallway. And then it had a clearer touchscreen interface, which was an improvement over the original. So it had a simple logic structure. So ultimately, you put it in a self-enabled mode. If it measures enough weight, it was about 800 cc's, it would go to a fill and then wash and empty if there was enough volume. If there wasn't enough volume, it would go into a menu that asked if you wanted to concentrate it, so you can pull back red blood cells from the red blood cell bag, reinfusion bag, and then it would go through a wash and empty, and then finish. You can wash a partial bowl, since the IntelliPath bowl. You can do partial bowls, so it would go wash a partial bowl. It would ask if you wanted to do a partial bowl, and then it would empty and finish. Obviously, it's suspended in more saline, so the current's a little bit lower, but it would wash everything out. And then you could also choose to return it to the reservoir, or it would do that automatically after a minute. So there's really very little interaction you had to have with the device. And so the Autolog IQ for our trial had the most consistent results, produced the highest quality product. The Soren Extra, we actually had the devices fail qualification, so we didn't use them clinically. And then the Haemonetics Elite had inconsistency with the heparin washout. So why do we choose the Autolog IQ? So because of the small footprint, like everybody, we have small ORs, or at least they fill up quickly. The low wash volume, so it was only 250 ml, so we had 1 liter saline bags for the wash and the heparin bag, and most of the time we only hang 1 liter of saline for kind of our normal straightforward cases. It was reliable, consistent, and simple. It allowed standardization with so many perfusionists. It was really hard to run it differently. It had the built-in vacuum. It was easy to clean now. So some of the non-standard cases, so we do thoracoabdominal aneurysms. So we put 2 reservoirs and have a transfer pack that goes to a rapid infusion device, so we can give blood back quickly. If we have cases where there'll be minimal bleeding, we'll just set up the reservoir only and just clamp it off at the bottom. And then if we have a massive bleeding situation, we could just pull a second Autolog in the OR since there's a tiny footprint. This is from a non-standard case, so there's actually 3 Autolog cell savers in the case. So you see these are just kind of screenshots from the screen. So the first one gave back about 3,000 mLs. Second one gave back 3,400 mLs. And the last one was 4,800 mLs. So obviously not a great case. So quality control. So we looked at 6 months of monthly hematocrit, potassium, and heparin testing. The oversight of our auto transfusion service changed from blood bank to surgical operations. So we lost the ability to do the heparin testing. So we just did blood gases for the hematocrit and potassium and used the potassium as a surrogate for the heparin washout. So we did 2 years of monthly blood gas results. So there were very minimal failures. And we did this every month for the 2 years. And we saw the failures were mostly user error, more so than the device. So we had saline in the bag and we got a low hematocrit or something like that. So we've since switched to every other month due to the consistent results. Busy slide, just wanted to point out, so the high hematocrit that we're talking about. So everything highlighted in green is we have hematocrits above 70. So you can see that there's several instances where the hematocrits are very high, which has helped decrease the amount of need for blood we need. So this is looking at our cell savers when we had the original Autolog back in 2008 to the Autolog IQ last year in 2023. So our encounters have gone up a little bit. So we did 5,000 cases in 2023. Total volume salvage was 2.9 million mLs of packed red blood cells. The average encounter went up a little bit to the 580 mLs in 2023. So if we had to give a unit of blood for every ml of cell saver product, we'd give 9,700 units of blood. If you take the average of 761 for 300 ml unit of blood, not that you would do this, but it would be a savings of about $7 million. So it's pretty impressive. So it's 769 gallons of blood is how much volume we saved, packed red blood cells we saved in 2023. So we're trying to put that into perspective. It's kind of hard to visualize. So the title of the talk is Making Every Drop Count. So it made me think of good to the last drop. So with Maxwell Hall's coffee, we're a little bit of coffee snobs in perfusion. I don't know if that's everywhere, but so we grind beans every day and do those kind of things. So a coffee pot holds 12 cups of coffee. There's 16 cups in 1 gallon. So last year we saved about 1,000 pots equivalent of packed red blood cells, or 12,000 cups of coffee. So I think the perfusionists actually drank the exact amount of blood that we say, or of coffee that we save with the packed red blood cells of the cell saver. And we've saved 9,000 gallons with the Autologs, obviously the 2 different, the regular one and then the Autolog IQ. So why did we choose the Autolog? So after the rigorous evaluation, it definitely outperformed the competition, and it continues to be a consistent and reliable product for us. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Pat.
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions? Yeah, sorry.
Hi, I'm Katie from Rochester.
Okay.
We just have, I think we ordered 5 of the IQs. 2 of them are going through clinical engineering, and we're going to start to get trained on them next week.
Yep.
But I didn't catch, are we going to be able to use the same disposable packs that we already have?
Yeah, it's the same
Catch that.
disposable, so which made it very easy for us. Obviously, you already have that in the pipeline, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're small, so they're easy to stack.
Mhm.
So, that was important for us. So it was kind of a small footprint outside the OR in our storeroom too. So, yeah, but it's the same exact disposable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a gentleman there. Thank you.
We tested 3 of them, and they all had a decibel level over 80, and we sit right next to them. So I don't know if you had any, I don't know where they sit in your ORs, but did you have any concern about how noisy they were?
Yeah, so they're off the side, a little bit off the side for us, but every once in a while you'll have, for whatever reason, it'd be a little bit louder, but for the most part, it doesn't really bother anyone. Every once in a while you'll hear it sounds like a plane taking off, and people look, but I mean, every once in a while we'll get it checked out, and it might need some lubrication or something.
Maybe that was just our experience, but for a decimal level 80 or above, OSHA recommends ear protection.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why we veered away from it.
Okay.
But thank you.
Yeah, with the initial one, we did that for the vacuum, so we ended up not using the vacuum on the initial one, but they've definitely improved that.
Okay, the online community wants to know, does it talk to your EMR? Your record, does it download automatically?
Right. So we did not do that. So we just put in the final product number. So the amount will transfuse back, and we thought it was too much of a hassle to do that. So we did not hook it up to our EMR. So we just hand enter that.
Neil and I with Medtronic, and sorry to hear about your experience with the noise there. We did have, early on in the launch, we had some manufacturing issues that were creating noise with the centrifuge that we've addressed and resolved in the current production.
Yeah. Along those lines, when I used them 10 years ago, I suggested to our repairman that there should be a spec on how noisy they should be, because I think they could be insulated to cut that down, and that'd be an easy fix.
Yeah, there were a couple of things, in the consistency with our manufacturer was a primary issue that we've addressed through engineering controls, but the machine does have a muffler on it as well, and so I don't know what the decibel level is now, but it's far less than 80. Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. So you use solely the Autolog? You don't use any other cell savers?
Correct.
Are you afraid that you might? How do you organize your stock? Like, are you afraid that you have some issues sometimes?
Yeah. So since we are so big, we do worry about that for sure. So we've taken with our packs and now with our cell savers, we have dual vendors for our packs, and we store 45 to 90 days at different warehouses and things like that. So with the Autolog, we do a little bit of the same, not quite as much. So we have a OR cart that we have 70, I think it's 72 sets on it. So we have one of those up in our storeroom. We have another one downstairs that's already built, and another one that's being built. So, that's whatever, 210 cases covered. So that's, a little over a couple of weeks, and we double that. So we have that available in-house. So we have 4 weeks available in-house, just to mitigate some of that issue, but we don't have a second vendor for that. But Medtronic's been great. We've never, knock on wood, we've never had issues, but how things are now, it seems like every product we use is, kind of hit or miss, and it's there one day and we're trying to substitute for something else. But yeah, luckily we haven't had that issue, but that would be, one of the things that would be kind of catastrophic for us. Our general cell savers has some other, manufacturers, but it wouldn't be enough to combat that. Yeah. So, if we got to that point, we might, prioritize for our, disaster redo, something like that, and get some of those cell savers for those types of cases. But knock on wood, we haven't had any issues. But it's always a concern. for sure.
Can I say one comment? Your quality control hematocrits were impressive. I've only seen that high on one other manufacturer.
Yeah, and we've kind of seen it consistent. You saw the green. That's why we put the slide there, because it was like, did this really happen? But yeah, it's always been, consistently above 6. I think we've had, I don't know, we were going to highlight the 3, I think, that were below 60, but that was it. So yeah, there was 60s for sure, and then a handful of 70s for sure.
Any other questions? Because we're experiencing a never event. We're on time, like way too early.
Way to keep us in line.
Yeah, well, you guys did an excellent job. Thank you, Pat and Marianne and Gabriela. Thank you so much for a very nice session. And please come back for the last session. These speakers put a lot of effort in their talks, and they deserve an audience. Thank you so much.